The wind came down from the Mogollon Rim like a breath from some ancient mouth, dry and sharp, carrying with it the smell of sage and dust. Eli Crowder felt it on his neck as he leaned against the porch post of his cabin, watching the sun bleed out behind the red hills. He had lived alone for 7 years now, ever since the cattle outfit folded and the men scattered like quail. The cabin was all he owned in the world, a square of rough pine logs, a corral of 3 rails, and a small patch of earth that grudgingly grew beans when the rain remembered to fall. That evening, just as the sky turned copper, he saw the wagon. It stood crooked in the wash below his place, one wheel sunk deep in soft sand, the tongue twisted like a broken arm. A single mule stood hitched to it, head low, ribs showing through its hide. Beside the wagon was a woman. Eli squinted. She was Apache. He could tell by the cut of her buckskin dress, the way her black hair hung in 2 long braids, the way she moved, quiet, careful, as if the land itself listened when she stepped. She was tugging at the wheel, her face set in stubborn effort. Most men in the territory would have turned their backs. Some would have reached for a rifle. Eli stayed where he was for a long moment, the wind rattling the cottonwoods, his heart thudding slow and heavy. He knew the stories. Raids. Burned ranches, dead men left with their mouths full of dust. He also knew other stories, quieter ones, about broken treaties and children taken and promises made and forgotten. Life out here was not as simple as the dime novels said. At last, he picked up his hat, slung his coat over his shoulder, and walked down the slope. The woman saw him when he was still 20 paces away. Her body went still. One hand dropped to her side, where a small knife hung in a rawhide sheath. "I won't harm you," Eli said, stopping and lifting his palms where she could see them. His voice sounded rough even to his own ears. He hadn't spoken to another soul in 3 days. She studied him, her dark eyes sharp and unblinking. "You live there," she said at last, her English slow but clear, nodding toward his cabin. "I do. My wagon is broken." "I see that." Another long pause. The mule snorted softly. "My name is Eli Crowder," he said. "I can help fix the wheel, if you want." She glanced at the wheel, then back at him. The choice was plain on her face. Night was coming. The land here was empty and wide, and empty places could be dangerous. "My name is Nalin," she said finally. "I will watch you." "That's fair." He knelt by the wheel, careful not to move too fast. The axle had cracked where it met the hub, old wood dried out by too many seasons. It wasn't an easy fix, but Eli had patched worse with less. "Got any spare iron?" he asked. She shook her head. He sighed. "Then we'll have to do this the slow way." They worked until the stars came out. Eli used strips of rawhide soaked in water, binding the axle tight, then bracing it with a length of oak he split from a fallen limb. Nalin held the lantern and handed him tools when he asked, her eyes never leaving his hands. When they were done, Eli tested the wheel. It creaked, but it held. "It will carry you," he said. "Just don't push it too hard." Nalin nodded. "You helped me. I thank you." "You're welcome." She hesitated, then said, "I travel to the south. My people are not far." Eli felt a tightening in his chest. "You'll be safer if you camp here tonight," he said before he could stop himself. "It's a long way in the dark." Her gaze sharpened again. "Why do you offer this?" He shrugged. "Because it's what I'd want someone to do for me." The wind sighed through the grass. At last, she nodded once. One night. They made a small fire outside the cabin. Eli brewed coffee, black and bitter, and warmed some beans. He offered her a tin cup. She accepted it, sniffed the coffee, then drank. "You live alone," she said. "Used to be more folks around," he replied. They left. Why did you stay? He looked out at the dark land, the stars bright as spilled salt. Someone has to. She studied him in silence. When she finally spoke again, her voice was softer. My people move because we must. Eli nodded. He did not ask more. She slept by the fire, wrapped in her blanket. Eli stayed awake on the porch, rifle across his knees, listening to the night sounds. Coyotes sang somewhere far off. An owl hooted from the cottonwoods. He did not sleep much. At dawn, the world changed. The first sign was the mule. It lifted its head and brayed, fear sharp in its voice. Eli was on his feet at once, heart pounding. He scanned the hills, the wash, the tree line. Then he saw them. They came like ghosts out of the morning mist, riders on lean horses, their faces streaked with red and black war paint. There were more than he could count at first, 10, then 20, then more, fanning out in a wide circle around the cabin. Lances gleamed. Rifles rested easy in practiced hands. Nalin was on her feet beside him, her face gone pale beneath the copper of her skin. They have found me, she said. Eli swallowed. Are they after you? They are after you, she replied. Because you helped me. The riders stopped. The circle closed. A man rode forward, older than the others, his hair streaked with gray, his eyes hard as flint. He raised a hand, and the others went still. Nalin stepped away from Eli, her hands lifted. Father, she called out. Eli felt the ground tilt under him. The old man's gaze flicked to her, then back to Eli. You are the white man who touched my daughter's wagon. Eli forced himself to stand straight. I fixed a wheel. That's all. You brought her to your house. She needed a place to stay. The old man's mouth twisted. White men always have reasons. Nalin moved closer to her father. He did not harm me. He did not speak lies. He helped. The old man studied her for a long moment. Then he looked at Eli again. Among my people, when a man helps another in need, there is a debt. Eli nodded slowly. I didn't do it for a debt. That does not matter, the old man said. The land remembers. The spirits remember. One of the younger warriors spoke sharply, his eyes burning. He is a settler. His kind takes our water, our grass. A murmur rippled through the riders. Eli felt sweat trickle down his spine. His rifle leaned against the cabin wall, useless against so many. The old man raised his hand again. Silence fell. My name is Taza, he said. I am the father of Nalin. This land was ours before your cabin stood here. Eli met his gaze. I know. You fixed her wagon, Taza continued. Without that, she would have walked into danger. Nalin's voice trembled. He saved me time, father. And fear. Taza's eyes softened, just a little. But there is blood between our people, he said. And blood calls for blood. Eli took a breath. If you've come to kill me, do it. But don't make her watch. A sharp intake of breath went through the riders. Nalin turned on him. Do not speak like that. Taza studied Eli for a long moment. The wind lifted the fringe of his buckskin shirt. There is another way, Taza said at last. A harder way. Eli waited. My people move south, Taza said. Soldiers push from the north. We are hunted like deer. We need food. We need a guide through the canyon lands. Eli's heart thudded. You want me to help you? You know these hills, Taza said. You know where water hides. Eli glanced at his cabin, the only home he had left. And if I refuse? Taza's eyes went cold. Then the circle closes. Nalin stepped forward. Father. Taza silenced her with a look. This is between him and me. Eli thought of the years alone, the quiet mornings, the empty nights. He thought of the wagon wheel, broken and mended. I'll guide you, he said. A low murmur rose again, this time surprised. Taza nodded once. Then the debt is paid. They left that morning. Eli took only what he could carry, his rifle, some dried meat, a canteen. He locked the cabin door, though he did not know why. It felt like saying goodbye. They rode hard for 3 days, skirting army patrols, slipping through dry arroyos and narrow passes. Eli led them to hidden springs and old trails known only to trappers and smugglers. The warriors watched him closely, suspicion never far from their eyes. At night, Nalin sat near him by the fire. You did not have to come, she said on the second night. I know. Why did you? He stared into the flames. Because someone once helped me when I didn't deserve it. She nodded, accepting that. On the 4th day, soldiers found them. The shots came from the ridge, sharp cracks that echoed through the canyon. Horses screamed. Men shouted. Chaos exploded. Eli dropped from his horse and fired back, his hands steady despite the fear clawing at his chest. Warriors surged forward, arrows and bullets flying. The canyon filled with smoke and dust. Taza rode at the front, fearless, his voice carrying above the din. A bullet struck the rock beside Eli's head, showering him with stone. He rolled, fired again, saw a blue-coated soldier fall. Then he saw Nalin. She was on foot, her horse down, dragging a wounded boy toward cover. A soldier broke from the line, bayonet fixed, charging straight at her. Eli did not think. He ran. The world narrowed to the pounding of his boots, the roar of blood in his ears. He raised his rifle and fired. The soldier fell 10 steps from Nalin. She looked at Eli, her eyes wide. Go, he shouted. They reached cover as another volley cracked overhead. The fight did not last long. The Apache knew the land. They melted away into the rocks, drawing the soldiers after them, then vanishing. When the smoke cleared, the canyon was quiet again, save for the groans of the wounded. Taza dismounted beside Eli. Blood streaked his arm, but he stood straight. You fought for my daughter, he said. Eli nodded, too tired to speak. Taza placed a hand on his shoulder. The debt is more than paid. They reached the southern mesas 2 days later. The land opened wide, red and gold under the sun. Taza halted the band on a high rise. This is where we part, he said. Eli felt a strange hollowness in his chest. You'll be safe here? For a time, Taza replied. Safety is always a short thing. Nalin stepped forward. She reached into a pouch at her belt and drew out a small carving, a horse shaped from bone. For you, she said. So you are not alone. Eli took it, his throat tight. Thank you. Taza nodded to him. You may return to your cabin. No Apache hand will harm you. Eli watched them ride away, the band flowing like water over the land, until they were gone. The journey back was long and quiet. When he reached his cabin, it stood just as he had left it, waiting. At dawn the next morning, Eli sat on his porch, the bone horse in his hand. The wind came down from the rim, carrying the smell of sage. He was still alone. But the land felt different now. And so did he.